Welcome to our morning show on WRCO for a Friday, and this is always one of our most popular shows here as we welcome Conservation Wardens Mike Williams and Cody Adams into the studio to talk about the upcoming gun deer season. So, good morning, fellas. Good to have you in here today.
Good morning. Glad to be here again.
Yes.
Yeah, likewise.
Are you well rested, Mike?
Well, you know, it's that time of year where it seems like the phone continues to ring, especially that week or two leading up. So I'm still rested, but if you ask me this at the end of the 9-day, it might be a little different story. So.
One thing I'm curious about with you guys, do you ever get a chance to hunt yourselves or not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's certainly something that you have to schedule ahead of time, though. It's one of those things where you got to put the time on the calendar, or that time just doesn't happen. But I don't think there's many wardens in the state that don't try to take a hunting trip at some point throughout the year, let it be waterfowl or big game or deer, but absolutely, got to make that time for ourselves.
I'm guessing that's kind of why you get into this business, isn't it, Mike? Is your love of the outdoors?
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak for Cody here, too. We both grew up hunting, you know, and hunting multiple game species, whether it's deer, turkey. You know, there's a lot of different things that we enjoy doing, and that was our passion growing up, and that kind of led us in this direction to choose this as a career.
Well, let's talk about this year's hunt. Cody, are there a lot of changes for 2024?
Nope, not a lot. One of the main ones that's new this year is that air guns are now legal for the pursuit of white-tailed deer under a firearm deer license. Air bows, we've had some questions. They do make an air bow. That is still illegal. You cannot use an air bow. But for hunters who maybe in the past were not able to possess a firearm, a air gun is not considered a firearm in the state of Wisconsin, and an air gun is now legal to harvest game. So that's one of the changes that we're seeing this year. You know, technology's changing. These aren't, the old Red Riders that we used to have when we were kids.
I was just going to say, they've changed air rifles a little
Correct, yeah. I mean, they've got high caliber air rifles or air guns now, and they'll shoot, 100 yards. So that is something hunters can use now. And then the only other change also is junior antlerless harvest authorizations are valid any land type anywhere in the state. So all kids will be given an antlerless tag, and they can be used on private land or public land anywhere in the state. So those are really the only two changes we have for the deer season this year.
An air bow, I've never heard of those, Mike.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with those. I guess I would be lying if I told you I did, so I don't really.
Yeah, and there's been different hunting shows where they show air bows and different professional hunters that they try to market, but basically it's a rifle that shoots an arrow, and it's powered by CO2. Some states they may allow it. I think Jim Shockey, it might be one of his pieces of equipment that he uses. He's a professional hunter and uses them up in Canada. But, at certain times they were for sale at Cabela's, and we'd get questions from, the retailers, can people be using these in Wisconsin? And they're not legal to be used in the state. So
Not yet. Perhaps it will happen.
Not yet, correct. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, Mike, go ahead.
One other thing to add, I guess doesn't affect the 9-day per se, but a change that was in the rules and regulations for people that are out there that enjoy muzzleloader hunting. They've now changed it where now fire sticks are legal as a muzzleloader. So if you're going to hunt after the 9-day that season for the muzzleloader season, you can use these new muzzleloader fire sticks that actually insert from the breech of the gun for your powder, and it's all pre-measured out, where before you wouldn't be able to use that. It has to be loaded from the muzzle of the gun, everything. But the muzzleloader still has to be the bullet itself. The projectile has to be loaded from the muzzle, but that's a new change too. So I figured I'd throw that out there just so if anybody had questions about muzzleloaders.
If anybody has any questions today, they can submit it at 608-647-4155. Give us a call. Bo and our staff will be answering that. You can also text that number as well if you have any questions about the upcoming hunt. So we've talked about what is legal as far as firearms. What are some firearms that you come across and you've come across in the last few years that are not legal, guys?
Well, a lot of changes now. There's not much out there that is illegal to use. There used to be requirements with barrel length. There used to be a requirement with the capacity of a magazine, and a lot of those laws have changed. And pretty much now, if it's a rifle, people can deer hunt with a handgun. It used to have to be a center fire cartridge bullet in order to legally be able to use for deer hunting, and now there's not much out there that people can't use. So it's the laws are pretty liberal now with what people can use versus 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was just curious, like an antique gun or something that, I don't know, is not safe, I suppose.
Well, hopefully people have inspected their firearms.
Right.
Hopefully people have sighted in their firearms before today, and that their equipment is safe when they're out there. We do get that question pretty commonly. Can we sight in our deer rifles today, the day before the season? Does it have to be on an actual shooting range? Some of those laws changed, and yeah, you can. You can still sight your firearms in today, and you can do it on your own property. It doesn't have to be at a licensed gun range or anything like that.
That is a change from, many years ago you couldn't do that, right?
Right.
Yeah. What about shining deer?
That's another common question. We don't really see as much shining that we did probably 15 years ago, but you can shine deer right through the 9-day gun deer season. You can shine deer year-round. The main thing with that, just to remind deer shiners that you cannot shine deer past 10 o'clock. You have to make sure that there are no firearms, no bows, no handguns in that vehicle when you're out shining. And that even somebody who may have a concealed carry permit, they need to remember that even if they have a concealed carry permit, they cannot have any type of firearm in that vehicle or bow and arrow, crossbow while they're shining.
You can shine during the season, obviously, after it starts.
Yeah, that is correct. You can shine all through the deer season, like Cody said. Just make sure at 10 p.m. that stops. One thing that I would mention that a lot of people are aware of, if you're making your way up here from out of town on Friday night and you decide to shine, just keep in mind you more than likely have that firearm somewhere, and whether it's in your trunk or the back of your truck, which would be a violation. So, like Cody was alluding to.
You got to go stash it somewhere if you're going to go do that.
That is correct. Go back to camp first, unload your gear, and then if you want to go out shining, go out then. So that if one of us are out working and we come in contact with you, then we don't have to have that difficult discussion.
And just be aware, too, I don't know if Richland County has any ordinances. I know Vernon County is starting to pass some ordinances in townships where shining is illegal. There are counties in the state, for example, I believe Buffalo County, it's against a lot of shine deer. And so Crawford County, we don't have any special ordinances. There's no special township ordinances, but some of those are starting to pop up because I do know there's a couple in Vernon County where they do not allow shining.
You have to be pretty well aware when you cross over counties, don't you, Cody?
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you're on back roads, township roads. But I know in Vernon County that they've got a lot of signs. So anytime you're coming in, that they've got signs with that ordinance, especially in the fall, to let people know that shining's restricted.
So what are the tags here in Richland County then? Are they different than what they are in Sauk or Vernon in terms of shooting a doe to get a buck, earn a buck, and those kind of things?
Nope. So I think we're pretty much the same in the southern farmland consistently. When hunters, they get their licenses, they'll get their buck tag, which is good statewide. And then they'll get their antlerless tags also. Antlerless tags are not weapon specific. So if I'm a bow hunter and a gun hunter, I could have as many as 4 antlerless tags. But it's just remember that hunters, they do need to distinguish whether those antlerless tags are private versus public, whether they're going to harvest those animals on private land versus public land. And we looked this morning for bonus tags. If somebody wanted to buy an additional bonus tags, I think Mike has those numbers in front of him as far as what's left in Richland.
Yeah, so for Richland County, if you get your 4 antler lists, like Cody was saying, where you got to specify public or private when you purchase your gun deer license. But in addition to that, if you wanted to go out and put some extra meat in the freezer, Richland County has some bonus tags. There's 409 available for public tags on public property, and then there's 1,669 for private tags available in addition to the 4 that you get with your gun deer license.
Lots of opportunities, right?
Yeah, there certainly is, and a lot of seasons, throughout. That's the other thing, we got our traditional 9-day, but here in Richland County, and Crawford's the same, it doesn't stop there. I mean, if you want, let's say the weather's bad or you just have prior commitments, because we all know that we get busy throughout the year, we have a 4-day statewide antlerless season from December 12th through December 15th, and then also we have the holiday hunt for the Southern Farmland Zone 2, which goes from December 24th to January 1st. So we have plenty of opportunity there. And then we also, in Richland County, have an extended archery season, which goes from January 8th through January 31st. So there's lots of opportunities. In addition, and I mentioned this previously about the muzzleloader season, that follows right after the 9-day. That goes from December 2nd through December 11th. So a lot of opportunity out there. So, some people, and it's good for a lot of people because they are so busy.
You'll hear the thing, well, I don't see as many deer. What's the word? What have you guys heard in terms of numbers of deer out there to be harvested?
Yep, so speaking with some of our wildlife biologists and managers, right now the overall archery buck harvest is near the 5-year average for what we've typically seen in the last 5 years. Antlerless harvest is slightly below average this year. Again, that's with the archery season. But, opening day this year, it'll be a little bit different because it's as late as it possibly can be. And this certainly separates the peak of the rut or the breeding season, from the hunting season, which can really lead to less daytime movement for the deer. So, again, like always, hunters will have a different experience based on where in the state they hunt and whether they're hunting public land or private land, hunting pressure, and many other factors. Deer distribution, it can be uneven, at the local level. So with anything, pre-scouting definitely aids in hunter success. And but at the end of the day, the deer season, and there's a lot of tradition, and it's not always just about the harvest. A lot of it's the experience and spending time with friends and family members.
That's right. I know you both would encourage younger hunters. That's kind of where it's at, trying to get that next generation interested, right, Mike?
For sure, and that's how we started out. Our parents or somebody else in the family, got us involved into hunting at a young age, and we continue to do that. And now I know Cody and I both have tried to share that experience with our children. So it's just something that we've always enjoyed, and we promote it any time that we can, whether it's through youth hunts, learn to hunts, just give them guidance on where, if there's a young person, trying to pair them up with somebody that might be able to be a mentor for them as well.
What about, I know you mentioned public lands, any of those open up? I mean, are there opportunities maybe more than the past or not, Cody?
So there are certainly a lot of opportunities for public properties, and I would say, in the years that I've been working in Crawford County, the number of non-resident hunters that we're seeing has certainly increased because of the technology that people can use to access and find those public properties. Let it be, apps on their cell phones. Let it be, mapping software that the DNR has available on their website to be able to see, okay, where are these chunks of public property? And, there's a lot. Crawford County, I believe I did the math a couple years ago, and there's over 10,000 acres of public property just in Crawford County, and that's between the riverways and DNR property and federal properties and MFL open properties. So there's a lot of properties out there for the public, to use. We just be mindful of those hunters that are hunting public property. Is that tree stands, they can't be left on those properties overnight. If somebody hunts in the morning, they want to use a tree stand, They can leave that stand out in the afternoon, but at the end of the day, it has to come back out with them. If they're going to leave it unattended, they got to leave a customer ID number somewhere on that tree stand where if we need to locate, okay, who does this belong to, the wardens, we can figure it out. But, ground blinds, again, if people are utilizing ground blinds on public property, they're required to have 144 square inches of blaze orange visible. It doesn't do anybody any good to be in full blaze orange if they're in a fully camouflaged ground blind. So there is some requirements. And again, the law only states that on public property do those ground blinds have to have blaze orange. If people are using blinds on their own private property, it's certainly still a good idea to have some type of blaze orange so that hunters know that those blinds are there. These rifles that people are using, they go a long ways, and that blaze orange that's there for safety to help protect the hunters out there.
Are there some public land opportunities in Richland County as well, Mike?
Yeah, there's several. In addition to the Lower Wisconsin Riverway, there's some county forests like Ash Creek County Forest out there too. But there's a ton of property along the Lower Wisconsin Riverway that people can utilize if they want to go out and get on some public land and hopefully successfully harvest a deer. So.
And if not, make sure you ask permission, right?
That's right. Yeah, we get a lot of calls on that. Fortunately for us, trespass is handled by the Sheriff's Department, not by us, because otherwise I think that we'd be going from call to call regarding trespassing, because we do seem to get a fair amount of calls on that every year, and we kind of direct them to the Sheriff's Department. So
that's the next question. If someone sees something that maybe just doesn't add up, who do they call first?
So certainly, if it's a DNR issue, give us a call. If they don't know, the Sheriff's Department, they will call us right away, if it is a DNR issue. I'd certainly recommend if people are having issues, if people are having problems, use your almost everybody's got a phone in their pocket, so if there's an issue or a problem, take a picture, take a video, but certainly don't get into a confrontation with somebody out in the woods when people are carrying firearms, and bad things can certainly happen there. So let us do the confronting if there's an issue, if there's a problem. Reminding hunters when we're talking about private properties that we get a lot of calls every year. I shot a deer, it ran onto my neighbor's property. Talk to those neighbors before those situations happen. Get a plan in place before that happens so you're not ruining your neighbor's hunt, because that's when the problems arise is, you've got landowner B that's trying to hunt. Landowner A shot a deer. It ran onto landowner B's property. Oftentimes people won't have a problem, but they want to wait until the evening, while they're done hunting, but have those conversations before that situation arises.
Indeed. Mike?
Yeah, and just for the listeners out there, there is a number you can call. I don't think Cody mentioned that on there, but we have a tip line if they do see something that's illegal, and I can give that. And that's 1-800-847-9367. That's our tip line. And another line that I can give is the information line. So this would be more directed for general questions, and that's 888-936-7463. So that definitely saves us a lot. Like Cody said, though, if they can't get a hold of us through one of those, then certainly call the Sheriff's Department, because they have our radio numbers and stuff, so they can get a hold of us on the radio where maybe we might not have cell phone service for some areas.
And that tip line, that's just 1-800-TIP-WDNR. So a little bit easier to remember. Anybody, when you buy your hunting license, if you happen to go to a store, those numbers that Mike referred to, those are certainly in the front of the regulations, just for a reference. If you need to call to report a DNR violation, or if you just have a general DNR question, feel free to call today. But you can call that information line. It's manned, and they will be able to help you out. And if they can't answer the questions, they put you in contact with our cell phones, and hopefully we can get those questions answered for you.
You bring up an interesting point, though, too. You've got a couple neighbors. Everything's chill, for the whole year until people get kind of territorial during deer season, don't they, Mike?
Yeah, they certainly do. Deer season's one of those times of the year where you can be friendly with your neighbor the whole rest of the year, and then all of a sudden something happens, and then, for the next 2-3 years, they don't speak with one another. So like Cody said, make sure you have those discussions prior to the gun deer season, and that alleviates a lot of the problems, just so that you're all on the same page. And we've seen some of that change throughout the years as these bigger parcels of land have been, I guess, that divided up into smaller parcels where, okay, I'm going to hunt this, I'm going to sit in my stand, I'm not going to leave that stand. Where in years past, they used to do more deer drives, all the different neighbors would get together at the end of the day. And we encourage that people still do that, because that helps build camaraderie and friendships. And it's a little more enjoyable if you have somebody to share it with.
Yeah, definitely. And another vehicle that has changed that is ATVs and UTVs. There's some rules and regs with that you guys would like to talk about?
There's certainly a lot of ATVs, UTVs on the landscape. I find it interesting how many you see behind trucks, come Friday night before the deer season. But certainly, yes, just remind people that you've got to be safe on those machines when you're out there. A UTV and ATV, they are still a motor vehicle. So those firearms, they have to be fully unloaded anytime that you have a firearm on an ATV, UTV. Gun cases, that law went away numerous years ago. There's still a lot of hunters that use them. These firearms are very expensive, so I highly recommend to still use gun cases, but it is not a legal requirement. A UTV, you cannot shoot off from, just like a motor vehicle. You cannot shoot out of a UTV from a UTV unless somebody has a disabled hunting permit. But just make sure you're being safe. With the UTVs, if people are going on the roads, make sure that the roads that they're driving on are legal routes. You can't just drive a UTV anywhere you want on the roads unless it's an open legal route. And then just remind hunters to wear those seat belts. Just like a motor vehicle, you have to wear a seat belt in a UTV. If they have them, you have to wear them. So.
Can't be coming out like John Dillinger robbing a bank, guns a-blazing coming down the road either.
That's right.
With UTVs. So we have some questions being submitted to the program, so we'll get to some of those after the break. If you'd like to talk and kind of maybe speak about some of the things you're concerned with, or actually maybe have some questions about, give us a call at 608-647-4155, and we'll return with Conservation Wardens Mike Williams and Cody Adams after these messages. Before we get back to the show here, we have a silver alert for a person that has been missing from the area of Ozaukee County, but recently seen in Westby. Richard Wohlers, age 83, 5 feet 11 inches, 250 pounds, last seen wearing blue jeans and a vehicle that is a 2009 Mercury Grand Marquis. So again, missing from Ozaukee County and could be in dangerous terms of dementia or cognitive impairment. So again, Richard Wohlers, seen in the Westby area with a Mercury Grand Marquis. Last word. Welcome back to the morning show as we have Wardens Williams and Adams in the studio. An excellent opportunity for us to quiz them here. Put them on the spot a little bit. Caller asks this: if I shoot a deer before dark, but if it runs off, can I bring my gun when I track it if it gets dark out?
So with that, whether the deer is injured or not, you cannot legally hunt after the legal hunting hours. So if you're trying to recover a deer, you can look for that deer. I don't recommend taking the firearm with you because if you happen to bump the deer, see the deer, and it's still alive, you cannot shoot a high-powered rifle, shoot a rifle at night. You cannot continue to hunt that deer after the legal hours.
So you couldn't put it out of its misery?
You cannot, no, okay. Nope. So you're going to have to wait until the morning, wait until daylight in order to legally hunt that deer. But again, if you're just looking for it, trying to retrieve it, that's fine, but you cannot hunt it. Same thing during the bow season. We get that question, with crossbow hunters, bow hunters, can I take my crossbow if I see it? Can I shoot it even if it's in the dark with a light? And you cannot. So you can't hunt those deer after the legal hunting hours.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, and the best thing to do would just be to give that deer some time. Don't go after it right away if you think it's injured. Give it a little bit of time. Hopefully it expires, given that time. And just kind of keep in mind, I guess I'll throw out there too the shooting hours, like Cody had spoke of, for opening day on November 23rd is 6:30 a.m. in the morning and 4:51 p.m. in the evening. Now, keep in mind, having said that those change a couple minutes each day. So the reasoning behind that is obviously safety. Safety is number one. So those shooting hours are in place for a reason. We have a hard time seeing after it starts to get a little bit dark or before it gets light out. So just kind of keep that in mind. Those shooting hours there are for a reason.
You're not sitting there watching your clock, though, as a warden saying, oh, it's 2 minutes past and they're not out of the woods, right?
Well, actually, we get a lot of complaints on that each year. Usually it's for shooting early. I don't know about Cody, but I've had several complaints throughout the years where people shoot before time is usually. On occasion, it's after hours, but we kind of keep a pretty close time on it, and we go off our cell phone clocks, which are synced with the correct time, so that we know, and there's a little bit of grace period there, but we do try and enforce that just because it's such a safety risk.
And there has been, fatal accidents that have occurred because people are shooting when it's way too dark. Those 4 rules of firearm safety, being able to identify your target. Well, it's tough to do when it's black outside. So the hunting day does not end when it's so dark you can't see through the scope. So it's important that hunters look those hours up every day to know what time the season opens and what time the season closes.
Okay. We have another call about wheelchairs and deer season. Do wheelchairs have to have the wheels off?
If it's just a regular wheelchair, absolutely not. There used to be a law where, you couldn't hunt out of a wagon without the wheels, at least one wheel off. But, even if it's a wheelchair, an individual is going to be just fine to hunt out of a wheelchair. Now, anytime if it's something that's motorized or electric, I do know, they make some off-road wheelchair devices, and if that's the case, or somebody's going to be utilizing something like that, they're going to have to have that disabled hunting permit because it's motorized just like a UTV, just like a truck. So, and again, that's a very easy process. You're probably not going to get it done before tomorrow, but a doctor signs off on some paperwork. That paperwork gets sent into the DNR, and then they issue that disabled hunting permit. That's the process for somebody who needs to have a disabled hunting permit.
And that disabled permit can be found on our DNR website. They can go in there, they can look it up, just type in keyword search disabled permit and print that off and take that to your doctor. So it shouldn't be too difficult. Like Cody said, maybe not this year, but if the caller is wondering about future, they should be able to get that taken care of.
Yeah, that's good. Some people have been told that wheels have to come off, the listener says. That'd be quite a process, too, to have to do that, wouldn't it?
That might be difficult.
Yeah.
Especially in the field.
Exactly. Good to know. Can you use a drone to help track down a deer that you shot that ran off?
Well, drones, just like all technology, seems to be like it's increasing every year. You can use a drone if you reasonably believe that deer is dead or expired. Otherwise, if you have a wounded animal, you would not be able to legally look for that deer, because that would be, under definition, you would be hunting with the aid of aircraft. So these drones are treated as such. I think Cody's a drone pilot. So there's some specific rules and stuff. So another example of something that would happen. So let's say they do hire a third-party drone operator to go in and help try and find that dead deer, which they reasonably believe is dead. If that drone operator goes in there and ends up finding that deer, they can share that location with the hunter if it's dead, but they're not able to help retrieve that animal. So once they find it, tell them the location, then they back out and get out of there. If they go in there and they find that deer and that deer's still alive, then that's a little bit different story. Then they have to back out and they can't disclose that location of that crippled or wounded animal. So those are kind of some of the things that I guess we look at when we're trying to determine if there's a violation or not. So just err on the side of caution would be my advice, and make sure that that animal's dead, or you reasonably believe it's dead, and be able to articulate that. So if we do end up getting a complaint on it, we respond. You can say, that hunter's like, nope, I shot it. I saw where where the bullet hit, it was bleeding right behind the front shoulder. Okay, more than likely that deer's dead. Try and make every attempt to look for that deer without using a drone, and most people are going to do that anyways because it does cost some money to hire these people that are drone pilots to help look for that. So.
Do you have to get permission to run a drone over somebody's property, or how does that work, Cody?
So not necessarily. Some of those drone laws are new, and there's nothing that really regulates privacy from somebody driving over somebody's land. Certainly, at some point there's going to be laws that prohibit this, but the whole drone operations and the capabilities of drones, they're changing very fast. The drones that we had 5 years ago didn't have the thermals on them like we do now. As a drone pilot with the DNR, it's pretty remarkable what you can see with the thermals and with the zoom capabilities with these aircrafts. But as of right now, no. But I say that, hunters need to be cautious because there are laws that prohibit somebody from when hunters kind of get into arguments, when they get into harassment type situations, and we've had some of those circumstances where hunters are being harassed by drones. So there's a fine line, and sometimes we really got to use common sense because there's a lot of gray area when it comes to drones right now, just because that technology is so new.
One thing that I would add to that, if you are trying to find that dead deer, when you're out with the drone operator, if you go out with that drone operator, make sure you're not in possession of a firearm or a weapon, because otherwise, that's another one of those areas where it could be construed as, you're attempting to hunt with the aid of aircraft. So just make sure if you are out looking using a drone, don't have a weapon with you.
Because a drone is considered an aircraft, and you are not allowed in the state of Wisconsin to hunt with an aircraft. So,
another question about baiting and feeding. I think we hear that just about every year, and that's a no, right?
Correct. Yep. So I think it's been since about 2000, 2001, pretty much Southwest Wisconsin, and I think there's only a few counties now where you can bait, but it is against the law to bait deer. It's against the law to feed deer. So I can't hunt over any bait, even if I want to put, corn or mineral in my backyard, but I don't hunt over it. Well, that's going to be considered feeding. We can't hunt over bait. We can't feed deer, feed wild animals. And the reason for that is CWD. Deer get sick the same way we do, by saliva. We see a lot of mineral blocks in the landscape. Obviously, if you're a farmer, if you have mineral blocks, you're going to be fine with that. But somebody who puts mineral out right in front of the deer stand, or a salt block out right in front of the deer stand, certainly, that's one of the easiest ways a CWD is spread. So very little, zero tolerance when it comes to baiting and feeding. And, those citations, they are not cheap. It's been a significant problem in the state, and they start around $500 and they go up from there. So, but yes, to answer the question, baiting, feeding is not allowed.
Certainly in your area, there's a high percentage of CWD here in Richland County, Mike.
Yeah, there certainly is. I think last year when the final statistics came in, I believe about 30% of the deer test positive throughout the year. This year, after speaking with our wildlife biologist, it sounds like the deer that have been killed this year during the archery season, I think about 26% of them have tested positive of the ones they've tested, and I think they tested around 1,200 deer so far. So, we know CWD's here. We know it's pretty prevalent, but there's certainly things that you can do to help slow that down. Like you guys were just talking, baiting's one of them. Harvest deer. If you have a high population and there's a lot of deer in a certain area, most of that transmission's through nose-to-nose contact. So harvest a couple deer off your property to kind of reduce that number if you got a large population. So
the kiosks are pretty much in the same place to drop those off, right?
Correct, yes. The sampling sites, they're, for the most part, one change is there always used to be a kiosk at the Wilson Nursery in Boscoville. There's no longer a kiosk there. But in Crawford County, there's numerous different options. Rick Lang by appointment, taxidermist is sampling. The Eastman Locker by appointment, they're sampling. There's a kiosk at McCormick's Bar and Grill. And Richland Center, Mike, Richland County, you've got a handful.
Yeah, there's 5 here in Richland County. Ithaca would be one. Rockbridge Natural Bridge Store, that's another one. That one there, I think they'll actually help you. So if you want to remove the lymph nodes, I think they'll actually help you remove those. I'm not sure if they're still doing that this year, but they have in years past. Another one's Boaz Country Store. And then Richland Center here at the old wastewater treatment facility, 590 South Orange Street. And then there's also one in Casanova on the Dern Farm, which is just 2 miles south of Casanova. So there's several different locations, and they're scattered throughout the county. So you shouldn't have to drive too far to get to one of those places if you want your deer tested.
You need to wear sleeves, right? Gloves when you're working with the deer to get those lymph nodes out?
It's recommended. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would point out, these sampling sites where CWD can be tested does not mean that your deer has been registered. So that's 2 separate processes. And every year it seems like I get a call or a question or somebody, hey, I didn't register my deer. I thought that was part of the process. If I sent it in for sampling, CWD sampling, I thought it was automatically registered. That's not the case. You still need to register your deer either by phone or online. So make sure that you're doing that, and if you have any troubles, reach out and call that information line that I gave earlier. They'll kind of walk you through it, help you out so that your deer gets registered, because that is one of the violations that we see on a regular basis, where people forget to register their deer.
And there's no law that you have to get it tested, but you guys encourage people to do it, right?
We do, yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of an incentive, too. Let's say if I harvest a buck this weekend and it comes back positive for CWD, the DNR will issue you a new buck harvest authorization, and that can be good for this year, or it'll give you a second buck for next year. So it's good for the year that the deer was tested, or the next year that it was tested positive. So, it's a good idea to get those deer tested, and with that additional tag opportunity, if it comes back positive, I think that certainly hunters enjoy that. They like that. Opportunity of a possibility of another buck if it comes back positive.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that recently changed this year was the either sex. So if you shoot an antlerless that tests positive, that's an either sex replacement tag. So that's one thing that should be noted, I guess, and I think that'll help people, I guess, have that extra buck tag for the following year.
I think certainly more deer will be tested with that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you don't want it you kind of want to turn it into a positive, because there are more opportunities to shoot more deer if you follow. If you get one that tests positive, you got a chance to shoot more. So it's a pretty good incentive, isn't it?
It is.
And if you do come across a sick deer, because this happens quite a bit in our areas, just because CWD is prevalent, there's actually a wildlife switchboard number that they created, and that number is 608-267-0866. Give them a call. We just we get so many of those calls that we're not able to respond to all of them, and it's more of a wildlife issue than it is a law enforcement issue anyways. So that's why they kind of created that phone number and that call. So call them if you see a sick or injured wildlife or deer, and they should be able to give you some answers.
Are there other seasons that are open during the gun deer season as well, for other wildlife?
Yep, so pretty much everything is still open. It used to be, the laws have certainly changed. It used to be where the archery season closed a week before the gun season, and it used to be where you couldn't hunt the day before the season. Well, everything stays open now. Bow hunters, they can still go out tonight and go archery hunting. We still have the waterfowl season that's open. I want to remind hunters, anytime that there's an open gun deer season, hunters are required to wear 50% blaze orange. So whether you're going rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, you still have to have that blaze orange. The only exception to that is if you're going to be waterfowl hunting, there's not a blaze orange requirement if you're waterfowl hunting, but there's still a lot of hunters that are hunting ducks on the Mississippi, on the Wisconsin River. It's still a good time to waterfowl hunt, so those seasons don't close. We get asked, can we still coyote hunt at night, during the gun season? And you can. Hunters can go out at night. They can still coyote hunt if they choose. But just remember, anytime there's an open gun deer season, we still have to wear 50% blaze orange from the chest up. If you wear a hat, 50% of that hat has to be blaze orange. And I say blaze orange, this is another law that changed that I need to include, but blaze pink. That you have to have either blaze orange or that blaze pink during the open gun deer season.
Okay.
And we certainly encourage people not to do the 50% blaze orange, even though it's legal. Always err on the side of caution when you're talking about safety. We always recommend that you wear solid blaze orange or fluorescent pink, because that just makes you more visible. We actually have some slides in our hunter safety class that we put up on our PowerPoint, and it shows the difference when people are standing in brush on 50% or camel blaze versus solid blaze. And there's quite a difference. It really does make a difference in safety. So we always encourage that.
Not a bad idea, probably, if you're just going to go out for a walk tomorrow, too, and like in a scenic area, to include some blaze orange, right?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. After looking at some of the statistics, every year I look at them, as far as some of the hunting accidents that have occurred. Unfortunately, we've had a handful of people who were shot who were walking their dogs. Again, those 4 rules of firearm safety. If every one of those rules are followed, it's impossible to be responsible for a hunting accident. A quick refresher on those, the acronym that we use is TAB-K. Treat every firearm as if it were loaded. Always point your muzzle in a safe direction. Be sure of your target and what's beyond, and keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. If every one of those are followed, you will not be responsible for a hunting accident. Last year, thankfully, and hats off to all of our hunter safety instructors throughout the state, last year we didn't have a single hunting fatality. I think the year before that, 2023, there was one. And when you look, we have around 600,000 licensed hunters in the state of Wisconsin, and we don't have a single hunting fatality last year. That's pretty good. Looking at those statistics and some of the things, there's certainly 3 common occurrences, though, that I see when we do have hunting accidents in the state. The number one thing is people shooting at running deer. And doing deer drives. I'm not saying don't do a deer drive, but certainly, plan your hunt your plan. Make sure you're identifying that target and what's beyond. We have houses shot. We have barns that get shot. So be cautious if you're shooting at a running deer. Another common one that where people end up shooting themselves is getting in and out of the tree stands or getting in and out of the blinds. Make sure that firearm is unloaded when you're getting in and out of that tree stand, because every year somebody's shooting themselves.
That brings us up to another safety point, I guess, which is our ultimate goal during this 9-day gun deer season: safety, and that's tree stand safety. A lot of people go out there, check your tree stands prior to the season. Make sure your straps are good. Make sure you have your harness. Like Cody said, make sure your firearm's unloaded before you climb up in it. When you're climbing up, make sure you have 3 points of contact. Take your time. Use a haul line if you need to. Tree stands are another dangerous time when you're trying to get in and out of the stand. So just keep that in mind. The other thing is utilize your technology for safety. We all have cell phones, and the service is getting better and better all the time around the area. If you're going by yourself, let someone know where you're going. Drop a pin, say, hey, this is where my stand is, so that if you don't return home at the end of your day, then we have a good place to start looking. Those are all important things in the name of safety, I guess, to keep in mind.
Good reminders. From a caller, could you specify where to find the lymph nodes on a deer?
Actually, they have those at those CWD sampling stations. There's actually a little diagram, and it spells it out. But it's going to be kind of in the neck area, and you might have to look around a little bit. But there's an actual instructions on there to tell you exactly where to look and how to get them. So.
Okay.
And even with some of the kiosks, if you harvest an antlerless deer, the entire head can be put in they have trash bags. They have everything you need in order for your deer to be tested. So they have saws, so the head can be put into a big trash bag, and then the DNR will cut those lymph nodes. If you harvest a buck and you don't obviously want to keep the head, keep the antlers, that's where some of these different sites where they will cut the lymph nodes out for you are beneficial.
Okay. I think we made it through a show without retired conservation warden Mike Nice trying to prank us here. I don't think he did today. So
We're not done yet.
Yeah. Maybe you guys were screening his calls.
Yeah, they might have been. They might have been. But here's to a safe hunt. We hope you guys aren't stressed out. That means everything's cool, calm, cool, and collective this next 9 days, right?
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Anything else? And maybe you could give those numbers out again, Mike, for people that have some tips and those kind of things.
You bet. So the tip line, if you have a pen handy, is 800-847-9367. And then for general information questions, the number is 888-936-7463. And then the third number is for the Wildlife Switchboard for sick or injured animals. That would be 608-267-0866.
Good deal. Thanks for coming in, you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll see you next year on November 21st, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Gun deer season starts the 22nd next year. I looked it up. So we'll see you then. Thanks a lot.